Hello, Deirdre. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you also for joining us today in my conversation with Deirdre. Deirdre is the owner of the business Coaching with Ms. D, which is a professional coaching business that helps individuals make career changes. And also, she works with graduates and professionals that are looking to advance their careers as well. And for more information, I'm going to have her website in the show notes as well as more of her background. But we're going to get right into our chat today, which I'm so excited to talk to you about.
Yeah, me too. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you for that. I appreciate it.
of course. So, career is, it's something that's near and dear to my heart. Throughout my whole life, I've been working since I was old enough to babysit, and I just think that it's such a significant part of well-being, which is why I thought that your career dovetailed nicely into the theme of simply being well. So, um, if I'll leave it up to you where you want to start, either with how you got into the business, or if you want to, I'm going to leave it to you with where you want to start.
Sure. Um, so I pivoted careers. I started to think about pivoting careers. Um, I want to say about 5 years ago. Um, I loved what I was doing, but I just felt I was done with it. It had been a very long journey. It was something I started in high school, and I started in the beauty career. And as a cosmetologist, I became a licensed hairstylist right out of high school. But I also went to college, and I was really torn between psychology and hair. And and I'm not saying that hair is an easy route because it's not by any means, but that's the way I went because of how my life grew. And there are no regrets in that. I got married very young, got married in high school, started having children right away. Um, there was a recession in the early 90s, and where my husband was going in his career shifted. So then I shifted what I was doing. Um, he wanted to open a business, and I said, okay. He had tried a couple of times, some failed attempts, and I said, I'm going to help you. Let's do this the right way. So we went all in, and I helped him grow like one of in that industry, a very successful company for about 10 years, until my youngest was in about kindergarten, and I was like, this is not for me anymore. And so that was like, I want to say my first big pivot was away from that.
Mhm.
And there were financial reasons for it because I was helping him run the business, but we really did need an extra income because at this point now I had 4 kids. So we needed the money. Um, I started writing online, and I wrote what I knew, and I had finished. I did get my bachelor's. I majored in psychology. I minored in English literature, and I just loved writing as well. And I was encouraged to write from my professor, who I loved so much, so dearly. He came to my wedding. I invited him to our wedding. But so I started writing online, developed this wonderful career, but it wasn't paying the bills. That was great. I got a lot of gratis. I got a lot of great invites to red carpet events. It was amazing. It was wonderful. But again, not cutting the mustard. Um, I applied for a job as an admissions representative in a cosmetology school because they saw me online and they saw my presence that I had developed blogging and writing for these outlets. They thought I would be a great teacher. So fast forward through that, I went through that whole process, becoming an educator. I got licensed. I went very fast through that as well. Became the director of a couple of schools. I was a salon manager. And COVID hit. I went back to another. I left that I took a severance package because they dissolved that position, got my master's in English. And that's, I think, I did go back to a beauty school as the executive director, but that was when I started to feel at this point that there's more. And I just wasn't thrilled with what I was doing. And so it was probably about a good 10 years. It was my early 40s. I made that one big pivot. And then I started my 50s. And it's here we go. And it was making me physically sick. So
Mm-hmm.
to tie it all in, I
Mm-hmm.
was having um, at the same time as I think perimenopause was hitting, which I'm learning about, which I'm in perimenopause. It's very odd. My mother never experienced menopause, and so neither did I. But now that there's more attention on it, there is they started to bring to light, the experts, symptoms that I was having that I wasn't the standard symptoms that you hear about, the hot flashes, the this, the that,
Mm-hmm.
and things like brain fog
Mm-hmm.
and just real heavy mood swings. And this was all happening around the same time as I was really getting discouraged in what I was working. This is just like 2 years ago. And I really discouraged at this point. I was like, so we moved, like you talk about totally changing everything. We moved out of state. We were in New York. We moved to New Jersey, which I love, the peace, the serenity of seeing, I get to a beautiful view of the bay. And I did go back to the beauty industry briefly. And again, I was, what am I doing? I don't want to be here. And I was feeling all of these symptoms, just pound me. I was unhappy. I was bringing all of that stress into my life. And I just really started to dive into some self work. Like, what am I doing? And I, I was lucky. A lot of women don't get the opportunity, and I'm saying women, especially women in their 50s. Um, a lot of us don't have the opportunity to just walk away from things. I have a very supportive husband, and financially, we were able to do that. And a lot of people can't do that. So I was able to walk out of that industry to become a career coach because through a lot of introspection, a lot of self help videos that I stumbled across. I stumbled across Mel Robbins, who I'm a huge fan of. Started reading all of her books. Started reading other self help books. Started journaling. These are all things. Started setting intentions. Really got focused back into my religion. Started prayer, meditation. I always exercise. That was always my thing. Like I've done that since high school. Since I'm 16 years old, daily exercise through all my pregnancies. That was not something that was an issue, but all these other things to keep my head clear and
Mm-hmm.
find clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to take hormone therapy, and all those things started to disappear.
Wow.
And I fell in love with coaching and got certified, and now I just want to spread that joy that I've discovered,
Right.
and let people know it's attainable.
Yeah, that what I'm learning about you that I'm hearing is that you've personally pivoted many times. So, which, your own personal experience is helpful in giving, others hope and guidance in their own lives. The other thing that struck me when you were talking was that your interest in uh, psychology and hair, which a lot of times, as you're cutting someone's hair, or coloring someone's hair, you are listening to them, and you may need to have a little psychology to to in that role too. And it also reminds me of real estate, which also is you can play that role of not only counseling and guiding, but the psychology aspect as well, which is
Sure.
kind of funny. But the other thing that struck me as you're talking is the aspect you were getting a message to kind of force you to pivot and then find that joy in your work. And I think that that's so important for as I said earlier, being well. And I've pivoted a few times in my own careers. After 20 years in two different careers, made major pivots, and have pivoted a third time. And it was always that looking for fulfillment, looking for purpose, looking for, joy. We spend, you know, so much when you're working full time, it's so many hours of your life. So, why not, let it be something that gives you joy and purpose.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah,
So I'm
exactly.
curious with either from your personal perspective with 4 children or with the clients that you work with, can you talk a little bit how you would um, guide your clients with work-life balance?
Sure. Um, it's really funny because that's such a personal choice, and with coaching, uh, and I'll give you an example. I recently had a client who wanted me to give her the answer. Can you just give me the answer? And I can't do that because what is right for me and what's right for you might not be right for her.
Sure.
That's a real personal choice. But what a coach does is we dig really deep with thought-provoking questions to empower somebody, a client, to be able to develop that insight themselves and not be reliant on a coach or a therapist. I think that's maybe the difference between coaching and therapy. Um, one of the differences. But there's, sorry, somebody just dropped something and I totally just lost my train. What was the question again?
We were talking about work-life balance and
Oh,
not
work-life
giving
balance.
them
Right,
the
right.
answer. Yeah.
That's the work-life balance when there's distractions.
Right.
The other thing, personally, for me, while I was going through this little journey, you hear all these suggestions on what to do, gratitude practice and this and that, and then like every day I'm writing things down and trying to fit them all in, and then feeling overwhelmed, like, oh, I didn't do that today, and then it's like, then you're defeating the purpose of the wellness, right? Of the balance and the work life balance. Um, so my suggestion is to really choose what's important to you and to guide yourself throughout that day. Like, when is it going to be best for you? Some people in the morning is creating that me time for them,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's through prayer, meditation, setting intentions, doing a workout, and then conducting their day and getting to sleep early and preparing for the morning. And some people, it's at the opposite ends.
Mm-hmm.
Health related, we really do require a good amount of sleep. Sleep is so important. And I mean, I remember my mom always telling me, you'll sleep when you're dead. And that stuck with me. And I have that mindset. It's like sometimes that will kick in and I'll just keep going and going until I just pass out from exhaustion. But the work-life balance is really trying to remember, and whether you have a family or not, whether it's your fur baby or whether you consider yourself to be the peak of importance, what are you putting first? Because that job's not going to remember you in 10 years, but your family, maybe your dog, and whoever your family is for you, whether it's dear friends, whether it's a husband, a wife, a spouse, children, grandchildren, whatever, they're going to remember you, and they're going to be the ones that are going to be missing out on that time that you devote to your business. So however you choose to create that work-life balance and create the peace in your life, but um, it's what's most important for you, I think. And then that's trying to discover that. That's my job, to discover what that is.
Yeah. And I think it's particularly important. Well, it's difficult to when you're working, let's say full time in an office environment, let's say you're not working remotely, let's say you're traveling even, to be able to take that hard line and make, let's say that your health, you're working out or meditation, whatever that self care practice is, trying to make that a priority. And how do you fit that in when, you're so obligated and committed on both ends of the day? I think it's really hard um, to be able to prioritize that.
It is, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons I left my job in Brooklyn when I moved here, because my commute would have been over two bridges
Mm-hmm.
through Brooklyn. There was no direct route. So we're talking a 2 hour commute with a son who had just graduated high school, who I dragged out of state. Um, and just because he's not a small child doesn't mean he didn't need his mom. So that's tremendously important. And then so how do you fit that self-care in? I transitioned from always listening to music in my commute, wherever it is I'm going, whether I'm meeting, because I will meet clients in their locations, not just do Zoom calls. Um, Wherever I'm traveling, I either a couple of things. I try to just sit in silence and not have anything on and just really be within my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that helps with clearing your head and your mind, not necessarily meditation, but that really helps with dealing
Mm-hmm.
with things at work that arise,
Right.
just learning how to incorporate all of that by being with yourself.
Right.
The other thing is I really started listening to, that's when I started listening to these great podcasts
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
audiobooks, which I never
Right.
did. I never thought audiobooks was reading, which is so funny because I am writing a novel right now, and I did write a book about cosmetology, but I never considered audiobooks reading until I read Stephen King say somewhere that he includes audiobooks in part of his daily reading. And I was like, oh. So then, of course, because he said it, I had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I kind of try to maximize my
Yeah.
time when I'm
Yeah.
commuting.
What I like about that is, well, not only are you utilizing your time, but you're also regulating your nervous system too by, taking your focus, somewhere else. And in a I love, books as well, music and all of that. So that is a great way to, just calm your nervous system.
Yes.
Great idea. What about, um, unless there's anything else on work life balance that you wanted to add, the other question that I'd love to ask you is about finding that career that gives you joy. Is there, anything that you'd like to say about that topic?
That is, we are programmed from a very young age to try to figure out what we want to do by the end of high school. Or no, not even the end of high school. I'm mistaken. By our 10th grade, sophomore year. And our brains aren't fully developed until we're in our mid-20s. How can we ask kids to figure it out?
Mm.
Because I think about my own journey,
Mm-hmm.
and my decisions were basically made as rebellion against my parents, who wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, which I didn't want to do. I have four sons. I have one son of the four who really knew at a very young age what his passion was. And the other ones were growing it and figuring it out as they developed. We can't really ask them at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just heard, I actually found Mel Robbins, of course. It's called um, uh, Decision Paradox, or it's on a recent podcast. So I may be saying this incorrectly, or um, something like paradox decision. Sorry, I don't have it because I just listened to it. So it's not registered yet. I didn't finish the podcast.
I don't think
And
it was one that I watched recently. I follow her too, and I don't think it
okay,
was one that I've gotten to yet. So
okay.
otherwise, I'd help you out there.
Yeah, and it's really focused on 20-year-olds, but I have one approaching 20 and one in or and two in their 20s, and how they're inundated with social media,
Hmm.
and they paradox choice
Hmm.
of paradox, something like that. And they are inundated with so many different choices every single day because of social media. How come, and that just kind of adds to that, how can we expect them to make those decisions? And it was really kind of like, as a parent, set me back a little bit, and I'm like, that's so true. So I think if it's a parent talking to a child, it's really just trying to be understanding and letting them talk it through. If it's a coach talking to a client or somebody older trying to figure it out, which is what I'm doing with another client right now, trying to figure out, does she want to be a business owner or does she want to go back to the corporate world for stability? And again, it's just really doing, if you're doing the personal work, it's introspection. It's what do you want to do? It's a lot of journaling. It's a lot of soul searching, trying to figure out, well, what is your passion? And your passion could be making money. Like that could be your passion, not necessarily, I want to save the world kind of a thing. I want to go help people. What is your passion? I mean, somebody might have a passion to be a singer and may not be able to hold a tune, but maybe that could change into that passion of, well, maybe they can work in the theater. Maybe they could work in a non-for-profit theater organization, something in the arts.
Hmm.
So it's kind of working with them.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out together. But again, I'm going to dive deep with you to let you figure it out.
Hmm. Hmm. Those powerful, provoking questions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think that, um, like you say, some people, have a knowing, some people have a need, and uh, some people are, like you say, that third category of just trying to figure it out. And it is so helpful. I come from a coaching world as well, and it's so helpful just to be able to voice your opinion out loud. And the answer comes to you just by speaking out loud is very powerful opposed to running it around in your head over and over on that cycle.
It is that aha moment. And sometimes that's just what somebody needs.
Yeah.
Just to be able to speak their truth out loud to somebody else without judgment. We
Right.
may have support around us or not. We may have
Yeah.
family, and it might not even be an intentional thing. Somebody might say, "Oh, you want to do that?"
Exactly. That's like where a family or a friend, it can not be so helpful.
Right, right, and they're not intending to be hurtful. Um,
They can't help themselves.
they can't help themselves, and then that could set somebody back,
Yeah.
and maybe have prevented somebody from doing what they wanted to do for decades,
Right.
actually.
Right. Yeah. So how about the person who is let's say let go? There's been a lot of that recently. So how about the person that's let go and they're sending the resume into the big ocean of other resumes and into the abyss. What how do you coach someone that's in that position?
Oh, that's rough because there's a lot of people in that situation right now, and then um, they're feeling overtaken by AI,
Hmm.
and they might not understand it. So there's an AI is very powerful. I mean, it's used in the parsing systems as they search our resumes and we're sending them out, it's a whole new different ballgame. So it really is teaching, um, it's getting them out of that failure mode. It's not a failure, it's just an opportunity. Now you have an opportunity for something else, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to grow. So what can we do now moving forward? What is it you want to do? Where do you want to be? How do you see yourself? What experiences can you take from this job and move them into new experiences? And then navigating through the applicant tracking system, teaching them how to create their own resume. I do something. I do a resume review. I don't write the resume for them. I had someone do that for me, and that was not it. It was good for about a year. I have to change or I had to change my resume for whatever it was I was applying for, because my resume, as you can imagine, heavily laden with all keywords pertaining to cosmetology, the beauty world. So if I wanted to transition, say for instance, to a college campus, I had the education for that, I had the background for it, but I'm not even making it through their ATS, because all that system is seeing is all cosmetology. So each resume that you send out, if you're not staying within the same realm, needs to be adjusted to the keywords within that job description. So it's helping them navigate that, which could, for some people and for some older people, could be really daunting when they have no idea what they're even like, oh my God, why do I have to do it? Isn't it just easier to have somebody else do this for me? Of course it is. But you really want to know how to adjust that, because what if you see a new job opening that's really interesting and it's like, oh, I have that skill, and you have to adjust your resume. So it's working through that, and then just helping them realize that whether they're laid off younger or older, you still have gained experience, and you should still be proud of that. And it's hard for people to kind of get past that. They're hurt, they're in their feelings, and helping them through that as well.
Do you have a sense of, do you find that people are finding jobs through the various online companies and networks, or through their own sphere of a network?
Um,
Is it a
I,
mixed?
it's mixed. It depends. It really is. There's so many different facets to this, because networking, nothing beats networking. I and I see, even on an online presence, social media, that'll emphasize it. You may get noticed if you have a YouTube channel, and your content is reaching somebody, if that's what it is, that's what that person is looking at, for instance. But networking is, I think, still so important, yet you have to have these other tools in your tool belt as well.
So it sounds like come at it from all angles.
I think you really, really do. And you have to know how to work social media, or if you don't, you have to have people who can help you as well.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like that I didn't ask you that you want our listeners to know before we wrap up?
Um, yeah, I mean, uh, there's some statistics on the OSHA website for, I think it was last update, maybe in 2021. So I want to say at this point, it's probably even a higher percentage of what's there. And it's stating that stress related to work is causing a very hot, well, I should say, work stress is causing a great amount of physical and mental challenges.
Mhm.
Um, and there are ways around it. Like I had mentioned earlier, you don't have to quit your job. Some people might feel like that's their best alternative, and they can do that, and that's great. But there are other things that you could do to work past it, because sometimes you can't quit your job, and sometimes you have to stay where you are. So there are ways to navigate through a toxic workplace.
Mhm.
Coaching can help, therapy can help. There are other things can help, as well as journaling. Um, a gratitude practice is really important, because when you shift your mindset, you might not be, not you might not be, you won't be as focused on the negative. When you start being, just start saying things that you're grateful for and changing the negative to more positive. It's not going to make that toxic person at work change, but it's just going to help you deal with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's there and it's real that these things are happening, but there are ways around it.
Well, thank you so much for bringing it back to wellness. I love that. It's my favorite subject. But again, I just think that, in my own life, career was, so important, and had enjoyed it for, in one career for almost 20 years before I left to do another career for 20 years. And now I'm on my third chapter. So, I know, it can bring you great joy, and it can bring you great stress too. And so I think having, and also my appreciation for coaching is, I think, so important, no matter whether it's career, whether it's a different type of focus that you have, that you just want that added support for. I can't recommend it highly enough. And it really sounds like you'd be a great partner, to have in someone's court.
Uh, I appreciate that. If nothing else, I've been through a lot of it, just like you. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, experience, really, it helps to understand what someone else may be going through.
of course,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, your website is going to be in the show notes. So everyone, thank you for joining us, and check out Ms. D, Coaching with Ms. D.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure.